Well, I'm back in the bomb shelter, so you know what I'm gonna talk about. The new issue of FIENDship is Magic is here, and this week we're gonna learn more about Tirek. Aside from Nightmare Moon, Tirek is the only villain in the show whose backstory was given some attention in the show proper. To give a quick recap, Tirek and his brother Scorpan had traveled to Equestria to steal magic. However, during their time there, Scorpan grew to like their culture and even befriended Starswirl the Bearded. He tried to convince Tirek to forget about their plans, but he refused, and eventually Scorpan decided to warn the princesses of his brother's threat. Keep all this info in mind, because it'll be brought up again later. Now, onto the issue itself. The story takes place during T-Rex's teenage years and... whoa.
He's so fine.
Moving on. This issue had two major strengths, the first of which was the characters and their portrayals, particularly Tirek and Scorpan. You can tell that Scorpan isn't comfortable with the path that his brother is taking, but he still cares a great deal for him and follows him around just to make sure he doesn't put himself in danger. With this characterization in mind, it shows that when Scorpan informed the princesses of Tirek, it was out of concern for his brother's well-being and not out of spite. Another good piece of characterization is the contrast between Tirek's relationship with his father, Vorak, and his quote-unquote mentor, Sendak. While Sendak is clearly a bad influence, what makes Tirek gravitate towards him is the fact that he, unlike his father, acknowledged Tirek for his talent instead of ignoring it. Granted, he was still a bad guy, but to Tirek it didn't matter because someone was finally giving him the recognition he wanted, and that was enough for him. On the topic of the king, he and his wife got some decent development as well. It's interesting to note that Vorak wanted to stay on amicable terms with other countries, but Tirek wanted power. Also, Vorak is a centaur while the queen, who I wish had a name, is whatever species Scorpan is. So does that make Tirek a half-blood prince? Well, regardless of what his mother is, she is still, wait for it, gorgeous. I kinda have a weakness for characters that are mothers or motherly, in case that wasn't already obvious, but come on, how can you not find this adorable? The second major strength of this issue is the art. I've said before that Tony Fleecs is one of my favorite artists on the IDW staff because of how he gradually improves with each comic he does, and he stepped his game up for this issue. All the new characters that are introduced have distinct, memorable looks, and the single and two-page spreads are amazing to look at. This comic does suffer one big flaw though, and that is the placement of the story. We see Tirek vow to overthrow his father, and you turn to the next page to see how it ends and... wait, it's over? There's a gray area between where this comic ends and where Celestia's story about Tirek begins, and the ending of this comic is very abrupt. There isn't even a the end or some other indicator that tells you that the story is over. With Sombra's comic, we at least saw how the end of his story connected with the beginning of the Crystal Empire's backstory given in Season 3, effectively building a bridge between the two. But here we're left with an empty chasm, and it seriously weighs the story down. Since this series consisted of single-issue stories, the comic was somewhat of a victim to its circumstances, as it could have greatly benefited from a second part. The best connection that I can come up with is that Tirek and Scorpan went to Equestria on their own, with Scorpan pretending to be allied with his brother, and once they got there and Scorpan befriended Starswirl, he alerted the princesses. The story is good up until we get to that ending, which is a crushing blow to its narrative cohesion, and for some readers, that blow can be fatal, so be wary. Next week we'll see the history of the Sirens, and while Adagio is the only one I care for, I'm still mildly interested. So, what did you think of the second issue of FIENDship is Magic? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Tumblr, and consider supporting me on PayPal through art commissions or donations. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.